Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Wellbeing podcast, where I talk about all things health and fitness, guide you through your journey to better overall health and wellness, and provide some tips and tricks along the way to make that journey as easy as possible without providing significant restrictions on what you can and cannot do, what you can and cannot eat. So, today we are going to talk about the importance of water, the effects of alcohol, and how to balance both of those. And we will provide strategies for proper hydration. All right, so let's just jump right into it. Water, we know it's important. We know we should be drinking some every day. But here are some facts about water, what it does, how much of it we're made up of. So we are approximately 50 to 60% water. Right? So that's a significant amount. If you're a 200-pound person, you are made up of approximately 100 to 120 pounds of just water. So the amount of volume, the amount that we're made up of water, shows how important that it is and how just a little bit of dehydration can take effect. So different parts of our body hold different amounts of water, are made up of more or less parts of water. So, for example, our bone, 22% water, muscle and our brain have more at 75%, and then our blood has 83%, as you would suspect, and then our eyes are even 95% water. So you can see how significant water plays, how significant of a role water plays in our body. So, what does it do? What does that 50 to 60% of our body weight consisting of water do? So, first, it dissolves substances, right? So, when you eat something, it helps dissolve it, it helps transport it to the cells. When it needs it, it helps transport waste away from the cells. So, it's a carrier, right? Especially since a lot of things goes through our bloodstream. Our blood is made up of mostly water. So, the importance of water is to dissolve and transport materials, nutrients, and all sorts of stuff in and around our body. In addition, it lubricates our tissues, right? We have our joints, and if you've ever, been on a pool deck or, spilled some water on the ground and slipped on it, you know how much water affects friction and how it loses a lot of friction. So if we're properly hydrated, it helps our joints move easily and smoothly, which will help limit the amount of inflammation that occurs in our body from just being dehydrated. We'll talk more about negative effects from dehydration a little bit later. In addition, it helps us regulate our body temperature. So if you've been outside on a hot day or have done some exercise, you know that when you sweat, when you get hot, you will start to sweat. And what that does is the sweat will sit on your skin and it'll evaporate into the air. And when it evaporates into the air, that evaporation pulls heat away and cools our body down. So if you're dehydrated, maybe you're not sweating as much or as efficiently, so you're not cooling your body down as well, and therefore maybe not performing as well, even if it's just as simple as going for a walk, right? And it'll increase that dehydration rate that will happen. So it helps regulate the body temperature by allowing us to sweat out that water. And in addition, it provides necessary minerals. So if you drink naturally occurring water, or if you even just get a mouthful of seawater, that has those natural minerals, right? The salts, the fluorides, and all of those extra things that we need, again, transporting nutrients. But it comes in through the water. And even if you drink bottled water or filtered water, processed water, they strip everything out to make sure the water's clean, but they also add in those minerals back to make sure that you are getting the proper minerals, but also not drawing minerals away by adding in basically pure water. So those are all of the main things that water does for us and in our bodies. So now we can jump into, okay, we know what it does. How much do we need to drink? And just like a lot of stuff with nutrition, it's going to vary person to person depending on their age, their gender, their activity level, their metabolism. So it's hard to give a precise number, an exact number based on just you and to generalize that. So, having a conversation, meeting with a coach, feel free to ask me and I can kind of help guide you. But in general, most adults need to drink about 12 ounces of water, consume 12 ounces of water. or sorry, 12 cups of water, which is about 96 ounces. And some of our water comes from food, especially if you're eating veggies and then fruit, think watermelon, right? If you have watermelon, it's mostly water. So about 4 cups or 32 ounces comes from when we consume the food that we eat. So when it's all said and done, we need about 8 cups of water, just pure water where we're drinking. So that's about 60 ounces. So that's usually the minimum that I have people start. And that just maybe you already are hitting it and maybe we need to increase it, or maybe you're not hitting it. And it's just being aware of actually how much that is. So, what changes that number? Like I mentioned, the activity level, somebody who's taller or weighs more will most likely need some more water than somebody who's, lighter and shorter. And in addition, if you're out and about in the warm weather, you'll probably need more water because you're going to be sweating it, which means you're losing that water is leaving your body. So you're going to need to consume a little bit more. In addition, more exercise produces more sweat, which means you need to make up that water somewhere. And then finally, if you're sick, just like we talked about with macros and food, eating more protein when you're sick because your body's working hard to help clear stuff out. You'll want to drink more water to stay hydrated. Typically, sickness comes with fever, so that will cause us to sweat, and therefore need to replace it. Right. So it's all just ins and outs of where are we losing the water, and then how much are we losing, and then how much do we then need to consume to make up those losses. So what happens when we're not making up those losses? What happens when we don't get enough fluid, right? Like I mentioned, we're losing fluid through breathing and through skin evaporation. And most of our water loss is through this, right? So when you breathe in and in your nose and your lungs, it's moisturizing the air to help it move more freely. And in addition, your skin, whether you're sweating or not, is naturally breathing. So you're losing air through the skin, right? The skin's the largest organ in the body because it covers everything. So even when you're just standing there, you are losing some water. You just don't feel it because you're not sweating and it's not evaporating and it's not cooling you. So you don't feel it as much. In addition, sweating when we're exercising or if it's really warm out. And then, when we go to the bathroom, urinating, we're losing water there, obviously. And that's just helping clear out any of those toxins, anything else that got filtered out. So those are the three main spots that we're losing that water from. Now, as we lose that water, what can start to happen? So, there's mild dehydration, and that can happen without even really realizing. You can typically go through normal daily activity, be slightly dehydrated without noticing a significant effect. But some of those symptoms of dehydration, we're talking headache, fatigue, maybe low blood pressure and dizziness, maybe a little bit of nausea, which if you kind of think through some of those symptoms, sounds a lot like a hangover, right? And the hangover typically is due to dehydration, right? St. Patty's Day weekend this weekend. So probably consuming maybe more than we usually do. It's in celebration and having a little bit of fun. But dehydration and hangovers go hand in hand. So we'll talk about alcohol, how to help balance that, how to help limit the effects of that, mainly by not over consuming, but how can we also not over consume? What strategies can we take to make that happen? So for the dehydration, when the symptoms that we talked about, athletic performance, how is that affected by dehydration, and just general, how does it affect the body in the stages? So at 0.5% dehydration, right, very minimal, slight increased strain on the heart, nothing crazy, but that would be the first measurable thing that happens. Then as we start getting deeper into dehydration, 1%, reduced anaerobic or aerobic exercise. So, those long distance runs or long bikes or anything like that, that will start, the endurance will start to go down. So we won't be able to maintain that as long, or we won't feel as good maintaining that same pace if we're running. At further dehydration, you start reducing muscular endurance, right? So you start feeling your muscles getting weaker, not being able to maintain it, not recovering as quickly. And then we lose at 4%, we start losing strength, we reduce motor skills, and we maybe start getting some heat cramps. As we get further into it, 6% lower below dehydration, talking physical exhaustion, heat stroke, and then 10 to 20% below that baseline threshold, you're talking potential serious consequences even leading up to death, right? So that's super extreme. You're going to have to really get deep into dehydration to get there, but you notice even that, 1 to 3% below, you start seeing that athletic performance start to decrease, right? And that can be any fitness level. That's just exercising in general. You can start see that performance decrease. So very important to get that water for all of the things we talked about earlier, but also for when you're trying to perform the best you can or feel the best you can while you're trying to exercise and improve yourself, right? Because ultimately, we just want to get a little bit better each day. So if we're not hydrated, that's not helping us when it comes to our exercise. So, how can we make sure we're getting enough water? Couple things that we can do, right? We can always carry a water bottle with us. If we see it in front of us, we are more likely to drink it. If it's right there, it's going to be much easier for us to grab it rather than having to every time we need to get a drink, we have to go up and go get it. But in addition, it's that reminder that it's there. So, for example, if you have cookies out on the counter. Maybe you have a cookie jar. We have a glass one in our kitchen. So whenever there's cookies in there, right, I might go into the kitchen with the intention of cooking dinner or grabbing a glass of water and not even trying or thinking about getting a cookie. But when I see the cookies, my brain's like, oh, I kind of want a cookie. So we can take that same concept and put it through water. Granted, water doesn't taste as good as cookies, obviously, which we can talk about strategies on that as well. But the same concept applies. If I'm sitting at my desk at work and I see my water bottle, my brain will be like, oh, I'm thirsty. I'll take this drink just because I saw it. I wasn't my intentions weren't to go grab it and drink from it, but because it's there, it triggers something in my brain that now I want to go have it. So carrying your water bottle will just have that reminder, again, ease of access, but that constant stimulus of, oh, there's water there. I'm thirsty. I should have some. Now, when you have your water bottle, if you can get a water bottle with a straw, that would help even more. That is because the straw, it makes it easier to drink from, and you typically drink more from the straw than you would if you were drinking it normally, like from a cup. So having that straw in there, again, will make it easy. You could do something while you're just going over there and taking a sip from the straw, but you'll actually consume more water using a straw than regular. So the straw definitely helps. Anything we can do to reduce the restriction and reduce the friction to do something, the more we want to do that. And another thing is to make sure if you don't like the taste of water, that's the main reason that you're not drinking as much or at all, is because it doesn't taste good. You don't like the taste of it. Let's add some flavoring in there. So we can start with fresh mint leaves. We can throw some limes in there, some cucumber water, right? Mix it up with the different kinds of things we're infusing the water with. If we can start with natural things, that's going to be better, but it'll add a little bit of taste. So that will help. I mean, we can prefer not to go this route, but even those little Mios, right? I would rather have a little squirt of that stuff in there in order to get the water than to not have any water at all. So if that's what's going to take, if that's going to be the stepping stone that gets you to just pure water or flavored water, I'm fine with that. I think that's perfectly great. Again, trying to minimize the restriction, minimize the friction to do something that we want to do. So the easier we can make something, the more likely we're going to do it, and the better off that we're going to be in the long run because it is easier. Now, another thing when it comes to, combining all of those, but to make sure we're getting enough water, maybe it's not something we're thinking about. A couple of things I've done with clients is have them set a timer, and figure out how much they're going to drink out of a set amount of glass, set water bottle, right? Set a timer for every 15 minutes, every 20 minutes, every hour, and I'm going to drink a cup, get one of my 6 cups that I need or one of my 8 cups throughout the day. And right. So if you do that at work and you get to work, drink your cup of water, set a clock for an hour, and then you drink another cup of water an hour later. When you're done your 8-hour workday, you've gotten your 8 cups in. And then more than likely, you're going to have something before, something after work. So that's a strategy that has worked for people because you forget, right? Even though that water bottle might be there in order to remind you, you might get so busy with things, you might get so focused on things that you just forget to drink water. So that's another strategy. Another one is to habit stack this is from Atomic Habits. So taking something that you already do every day and stacking something that you want to start doing in combination of that. So for example, If you're answering emails all day, I'm sure most of us are. Every time you answer an email, hit send, take a sip of water. And, if you send 30, 40, 50 emails, or every time you read an email, right? Just take a sip of water and it'll start conditioning yourself that you won't even start having to think about it. You'll hit send, you'll drink from your straw. Next thing you know, you're filling up your water bottle 2, 3, 4 times during your work day, and you've hit your goal just at work. If we can do that, make it easy, you won't even have to start thinking about it that often. So the habit stacking is a nice way to do that. You can do it with emails, like I said. You could do it every time you have a phone call, if you're on the phone a bunch, just whatever you're doing at your day job, consistently doing it multiple times a day, stacking that water consumption habit with that will be a huge help to make it easy to drink that amount of water. So we talked about water, its benefits, what you can do to drink more of it, how much do we need. Let's talk about the next thing that comes up when we're talking about, all right, what do you drink during the day, right? When I go through a client's initial consultation, we talk about their normal day. And one of those is, all right, what do you drink? How much of it do you drink? How often do you drink it? Water is a big one. Coffee is another big one. But alcohol is also a major one. It's a huge part of most people's lives. Socially, everybody goes out more often than not and has, drink, even if it's just casual. So it's a question I get asked a lot on, what should I do? How can I limit it? I don't want to eliminate it. And right, the whole point here is to not cause major restrictions. It's adding good things on and not necessarily removing the bad things, right? That's the goal, to remove as much of the bad stuff as we're willing to do and also provide balance. So the whole alcohol and being a healthier, fitter person is a tough balance to maintain, because a lot of people aren't, including myself, aren't willing to fully get rid of alcohol. I don't drink that often, but I don't like to just completely shut it down, because it is nice to, in a social setting, go out and have some drinks sometimes. So how can we balance that? Let's talk about alcohol and water and what we can do. So standard drink, just for reference, has about 15 grams of alcohol in it. So that's a 12-ounce beer, it's a 5-ounce glass of wine, it's a shot, so about 1.5 ounces of spirits. So what happens is, when we consume that alcohol, our body starts prioritizing the metabolism of that, because it's essentially a toxin entering our body. So our body says, I need to get rid of that first, clear that out of the system. So it's going to digest that alcohol, it's going to break it down, it's going to clear it out. Meanwhile, most likely you're eating with the alcohol. Sometimes the alcohol is mixed with other things, carbs, and then we have the foods, the bar foods, the proteins, the fats. So all that stuff is not getting processed while that alcohol is getting processed. So what will happen is we start storing those extra calories, and it will continue to store those until that alcohol is cleared out. Now, some of it will get broken down, but it's going to cause a lot of storage, right? So when you're doing it consistently, it will start stacking up. In addition, once we start having that alcohol, our inhibitions will lower a little bit. So we don't always make the best decisions or the best choices when it comes to dieting and food choices. So if you're out in that social setting and you go into it saying, all right, I'll have a drink or two, but I'm not going to have, the wings and the cheesesteak and French fries that are going to be at the table. I'm just going to have a couple of drinks. I'll have, a salad, or maybe like a, chicken breast or whatever. But that alcohol comes in, maybe you're drinking two in, and that inhibition starts to go down. It's like, all right, well, I'll just have one wing, and that starts spiraling, right? So that's typically what ends up happening. The decisions and choices start to get a little bit looser, and we go down that, all right, we ate more than we wanted to. We ate different things than we wanted to when we went in. So that's another side effect. It's not a direct, this is what alcohol is doing to, cause us to overeat or gain weight, but it's a byproduct of it sometimes. In addition, it also dehydrates us, which is why we get hangovers. So that's some of the effects just generally. And then when we talk, athletic performance, obviously strength, power, cardiovascular endurance all go down. And then, post exercise, muscle growth, recovery, those are negatively impacted too, because we're not processing those other macros, those proteins, those carbs that we need to fuel those muscles after a workout. So because we're prioritizing the alcohol, we're not getting the refueling that we need. So the workout you did, not say it's wasted, but you're not getting the full benefits, the full recovery benefits of that workout. So all this going to say, do I need to give up alcohol? Would that be ideal? right? In an ideal world, yeah, like if we could restrict all the bad stuff and do only good stuff, you're going to get the best results. But I understand that that is not realistic for most people. So, of course, I'm not saying, yes, give it all up. But we do need to balance it. And we need to make better choices typically than we may be currently. So, avoiding alcoholic drinks with a lot of extra sugar. So a lot of those, exotic mixed drinks, you know, especially like margaritas and like rum runners, right? Anything you might if you go into like all inclusive in Mexico or Jamaica, like any of those swim up bars, all this, the fancy stuff that you see, walking around, right? Lots of sugars in those. That's just not even the alcohol component. It's the sugars. So avoiding those, and even rum and Coke, right? That Coke, unless it's a Diet Coke, which most of the time it's probably not at a bar, that will have a lot of sugar in it as well, which brings up those calories. And then you have the alcoholic effects as well that we just discussed. So if we can avoid the sodas, the juices, the pre-mixed mixers, that will help keep the amount of calories that we're consuming down while also being able to enjoy, those drinks out with friends. And so we can replace those with our simple drinks. Just having a glass of wine. If we're gonna have a beer, stick with the lighter beers. And then if we can do the spirits with like just a carbonated water, that's going to be ideal because we won't have all those extra carbs coming in. So let's compare some. So just a tequila and soda water, right? No additional sugars. We just have the 123 calories from the alcohol itself, right? And same thing with the vodka and soda water. You can do the same thing, very similar calorie wise, limited sugar. If we go into a Cosmo, we're talking 9 grams of sugar and 187 calories. And then we're talking frozen margaritas, 78 grams of sugar and 300 calories. So you're getting the same alcoholic effects with 2 to 3 times the amount of calories. So depending on how many drinks you might have, you can make that pretty big swing. You could have 3 tequila and soda waters to 1 frozen margarita for the same calories, right? So that's just a way to kind of compare everything. Another final tip when it comes to balancing alcohol and water and hydration when we're out is to mix a water after each drink. So go 1 drink and then 1 water. It'll make you feel a little full, but it'll spread it out. So you're still drinking stuff throughout the night, but maybe it cuts the amount of drinks that you're having in half. So if you maybe you have 4 drinks throughout the night, it's just 2 of them are alcohol. Even if they are sugary alcoholic drinks, right? It's still just 2 rather than all 4. Mixing those in will help, and then it will help the dehydration that you're gonna get from the alcohol. It'll help with the potential hangover that you'll have the next day. So that's like the biggest thing is to mix in that water between everything. So key takeaways for today: water makes up a significant amount of our body, 50 to 60%. So therefore, it's super, super important. It helps with lubricating our joints and regulating body temperature. How much of water do we need since it does make so much up of our body? Shooting for at least 60 ounces of water. Now, how can we get that water? Talk about having a water bottle with us at all times, using a straw as much as possible. If we can get a water bottle with a straw, that's even better. And then flavoring a water with a low calorie option, infusing it with fruit or mint leaves, and then habit stacking that water consumption with a task that we're doing consistently, constantly throughout the day. So it becomes second nature and we're getting it in small doses a bunch of times. And then finally, alcohol doesn't need to be eliminated, but we need to adjust our choices and help us from over consuming that alcohol. So using low calorie drink mixes or no sugary adders to our drinks, and then mixing in waters between each of our drinks. Finally, I like to leave with an action item. First thing that we should do is how much water, just water, are you drinking throughout the day? Be more mindful of that. If you know how big your water bottle is that you have, if it's a 24-ounce bottle, keep track. How many times a day do you fill that up? So you fill it up in the morning, perfect. And then you drink it throughout the morning. At lunch, you fill it up again, and then you fill it up again at dinner, after dinner. So if we fill that bottle up 3 times, we know that we've drank 3, right? 324 ounces, 72 ounces. We've hit that at least 60 ounces. It might be eye-opening to see how much we're actually drinking. If we're drinking more than 60, awesome, right? Drinking more necessarily won't be bad. Up to 100 ounces would be great. But you might find out, oh, I'm only drinking 40 ounces, right? And you might not realize the effects that drinking even just 20 ounces less than you should be is having on you. And you might start drinking more water, getting your 60 ounces, and realizing, oh, I feel so much better now. And that might solve a lot of issues or some issues that you might be having, whether it's trouble sleeping or not performing well at the gym or just not feeling good enough to even go to the gym. So, doing that, being mindful of how much you are drinking and adjusting how much you are drinking based on that result. So, also, not just water, right? Else am I drinking throughout the day? Am I drinking, you know, an alcoholic beverage every night? Is it 3 nights a week? Is it just on the weekends? How much coffee am I drinking? Just have an idea of what you're drinking and how much will help if you end up going to a coach, because they're most likely going to ask what you are doing, what you're drinking, what you're eating throughout the day. So if you already know those answers, you can kind of already start self-adjusting before then. But if you need more guidance, they'll be able to help you. And then finally, next time you go out for drinks, making sure that you consider the option we talked about when it comes to alcohol, mixing in the drinks, trying a lower calorie option, right? Just the maybe spirit and soda water to have those drinks, right? So enjoy the drinks. We want to enjoy life and everything that has to go with it without necessarily risking long-term health, wellness, and fitness. So trying those the next time you go out will be a really good thing to work on. So between those two things, water and alcohol, hopefully this was helpful. Feel free, follow me on Spotify, on YouTube. Post the video. I'll post the recording on both of those, so you can watch it out later. If you found anybody or anything in here helpful and anybody can use it, please forward it over to them. My ultimate goal is just to help as many people live a better, healthier life. And anything I can do to help, please reach out, message me on Facebook, message me on Instagram. I'd be more than happy to jump on a call and figure out what's going on and what I can do to help. So until next week, I appreciate it. Everybody have a good rest of your day.